We should have done that. Me, me,
Yep.
me, 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 me.
Pee 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 pee.
What's the thing they say when they at the
7 inches.
theater? They say something like things start by the seashell or something like that. You know, it's like I don't know. Let's say your voice.
The rain in Spain falls mainly on the plain.
Is that it? It sounds real.
Said,
what
you
we
know
say.
what I want. You know what I want you to say.
What? Oh,
Park.
pack the cat and have it yet.
Yeah, there we go.
Like the cat.
You know how many
Love
times
it.
in my life I've been asked that? Say pack the cat.
Yeah, of course, because you have the funny accent.
I don't have a funny accent. Ronnie's
Yeah,
got the
you
funny
do.
accent.
Yeah, Ronnie does have a funny accent. I'm the only
He
normal
does.
one here.
Yeah, those Arizona accents are so strong.
Define normal.
Yeah.
It's Abby normal.
You know, I will say when I watch this old house now, I feel like I'm watching Sedge's Friends because I hear the same accents that I hear from Sedge. So it's kind of interesting.
But when
Yeah.
you guys go to JLC, ha, ha,
I'm in your homeland then.
yeah, you damn skippy.
Yes.
Yeah. And you guys get to reap the reward of proper English.
Proper.
Proper. That's what I
The king.
said.
What is it? What do they call it? The king's English? Or is it the
Yeah.
queen?
Oh, I just had a deep thought.
Yeah, me
What's
too.
the original? What's the original? Like, is your accent the original, like speaking, and it's just been changed across the country? Is that where's the
Yes.
original English speaking accent?
Well, see, people, it's around Boston, Maine area. People don't realize that New York is a suburb of Boston. You know,
I'm like, really?
I was like, yeah, I was like, is it really? People say that?
that's how you really piss off a skanky fan.
Okay, I got you.
Boy, I got some. My latest video on Sedge, I got some heat because I had a Red Sox shirt on. Man, doesn't anybody know that's God's team?
Yeah.
Go
Oh,
Celts. Go Celtics. They swept the spaces.
Here comes
Yeah.
Max.
Oh, here comes Max.
Just don't understand. It's like as soon as I start recording, he's got to
There
run.
he is. There's the mini tank. Hey, tank, how are
Hey.
you?
So we actually had to. Well, I was already like getting ready. I was leaving the house to go pick him up, and we get a call from the daycare, and it was like, "Hey, you need to come pick up Max. He has a fever and he can't come tomorrow." I was like, "What?" But he's in good spirits.
What's up, Super Stud?
Yeah, sometimes fever only lasts, like a day. Sometimes it'll be fine. Maybe, hopefully.
Hi, Max.
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah,
look,
that's
he's
my
waving.
buddy.
Yeah, hi.
Hi, buddy. It's my pal.
Gosh,
He's funny.
I remember when I was that age coming into my dad's Zooms.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's getting too big too quick. Didn't your great grandmother invent Zoom?
Yes, the only thing was they didn't have cameras or laptops.
Oh.
So they were.
Oh,
There's the missus.
yeah, mommy came to save the day.
And then once they realized that she didn't have the bandwidth, she just gave it up.
Yeah.
Yeah, she didn't have the
Just gave it up.
They didn't have a long enough string between the
It required the operator station to somehow make those cameras talk to each other, and it just blew their mind. They couldn't pull it off.
Hold on, guys. Listen.
Oh,
It
didn't come
yeah.
through.
They cut it out. Isn't that amazing?
It cuts it out.
It was literally held up right next to it.
He opens a can right in front of the microphone, and we're like,
You didn't hear it?
No, not at all. It's like
Wow.
ASMR opportunity. I'm like, let's see what it sounds like on this microphone. Nothing. With silence.
Let me
That's the
let me
second
tell you
best sound
guys.
in the world.
Ever since I got back from Germany,
Yes.
I don't know what it was. So I've said this before.
You have a full refrigerator of Bittenberger.
Well, not anymore. I don't. When I lived in Germany for 5 years, just over 5 years, I was never a big fan of German beer because when I first moved there, I started drinking Hefeweizen, and I've never been a huge fan of that. And I was like, man, this is just like I don't really care for it too much. And then I would enjoy it more when I would go visit. But this time, for some reason, I mean, I like it was amazing. Like I drank so much, and I drank this particular beer, Bitburger, or my family would yell at me for saying that. It's Bitburger.
Oh, Bitburger.
Yeah,
Bitburger.
That sounds right.
kind of like Westfaner.
Yeah,
Is
man.
not
I get schooled this weekend.
Weinsteffen.
Feinsteffen. It's not Westfalen. It's Feinsteffen.
I did the same
Whatever.
thing.
Pour me another one.
But man, I don't know why. I'm all over it. It just sucks because you can't get very many good options here.
By the way,
But
that was your best brisket ever on Monday. The best.
I will have to say, I 100% agree with you. I've been picking at it each day. Like we have it with eggs in the morning, but I've been making like these little sliders. Like I just had one for dinner on those amazing rolls that Nicole found.
Oh yeah. Oh,
And even cold, and I know I know what was different about this one. I seasoned it way heavier than I normally do. I'm like, you know what? I'm always so worried that I'm putting too much on there. Don't even care anymore. Now I know. It was so good. Oh
perfect.
God, makes my mouth water.
You cut it. We just watched it juice.
Yeah, just draining out.
oh, it's
So-
like squirting.
And it all stayed moist this time. The last few that I've done, there's another thing that I squirting. This is a family podcast.
That's right. I didn't mean it like that.
Oh, okay. There's another thing that I did that I used to always do that I haven't done for like the last 3 or 4, and that's putting the foil like directly underneath it after like the
Yeah.
first 4 hours.
Dude.
Oh man, because the last few
But-
I felt like turned out a little dry, so I went back to the old foil boat method, and oh God, that was good.
So you hit me those burned ends, which we always do. And I said, okay, everybody else can. And then I hit the sausage. Oh my God.
Yeah, the
Those
sausages were
reds
really
are
good.
so freaking good.
Yeah, I don't even know
Yeah.
why Nicole gets anything other than those. Like those are the ones
Yeah.
that everybody always likes and eats.
Yeah.
We have so many of them. She spent like $300 at the German butcher.
Jeez. Christmas.
Yeah. Only on sausages.
Yeah. As she should, because they're the best.
Yeah,
What's the
they're
name of that butcher?
Klaus's?
This podcast is brought to you by Klaus's
Klaus's.
German Butchery, the home
Butchery.
of the big wiener from Germany.
Yeah. They trademarked that name, so
Yeah.
um
The better sausage.
yeah. Before we get too deep into it,
Sausage.
this is actually going to be the first episode of June. I cannot believe that it's going to be June next week. But technically it comes out to the patrons while it's still May. So we're not going to do the drawing tonight for our second month in a row with Tyler at Forge 3D for 2 $100 gift cards to two lucky patrons. And speaking of patrons, we don't have any new patrons. So I'm actually thinking that Patreon is broke. So if we could just have everybody that's not a patron just sign up
Mm-hmm.
before the next episode, just so we know that it is in fact working, we would greatly appreciate it.
That's a good
That's a
end
good-
user test.
Yeah.
Really
Yeah.
good test. I'll have to see. I like that idea.
So we will do the drawing next week for that. And I also do not have a giveaway participant yet for the month of June. But next week we will announce it. We will draw our 2 lucky winners, and we will raffle off yet another random festival item.
Wicked cool.
Actually, you know what I think I'm going to do this for this next one?
What?
Maybe I raffle off that the new sustainer, the limited edition one, the barbecue grilling one.
Oh wow.
That apron is impressive.
I mean, I'm not going to have a use for it. I'm just
It's-
not.
The apron
Somebody
is,
else would like it.
I really like it. It inspired me to get a meat thermometer.
Yeah. Oh, speaking of meat thermometers, you know what's really cool?
What's that?
That new little level from Festool.
Oh, I know. I know. It's
I've
awesome.
been using it on this built-in, and I'm like, this thing is so dang handy.
It's a good straight edge too.
Sedge is dying right now.
What a freaking segue! Speaking
Yeah.
of meat thermometers,
It was perfect.
You know, the only
God.
thing that I'm going to struggle with is knowing where I stuck it in which handle. We're talking about the level that goes into inside of the handle. That is,
Oh, you're talking about you're talking about the level where you
yeah, the
stuck it.
level. I'm going to have to keep a standard sustainer, or I'm going to be looking for it, and that would take a while to find it.
Well, I mean, not really. It has the two little green tabs that stick out of the handle. All you'd have to do
But
is
if
look
they're
it up.
if they're in a stack, like in the drawers, like in the van, you'd have to almost pull out every one of them.
Oh, yeah, I see what you. Okay, yeah,
So
you're right.
I'm thinking I'm going to make my bit sustainer, my blue, like, or will it fit in the handle on that? No. Yes. No.
Uh,
Do those have those kind of handles?
Do you have a meat thermometer in your van?
Yes. You never know. No, I did notice that doesn't fit in every sustainer handle.
No,
only
it doesn't.
fits in the ones that have the grooves on the side, basically, right?
Yeah,
For
the
the
one that has
door
a
slides.
slate. It's got a slate. Yeah.
So those Sys Org 3 sustainers with the clear lids, those have it on the side, but do they have the kind of handle that will accept the level? I haven't checked that out yet.
No.
They don't. Okay. Well, that was where I was going to keep it, in the one with my bits. Because I always get that one out. It needs
Yeah,
to be it needs to be in one that you always get out. I think that's what I'm thinking for me and for anybody who's using it.
Put it in
If
your
not,
Festool tool bag.
I didn't know it went in there. It goes in the handle of the
Oh,
tool bag.
that I don't know. I was just saying, like, just put it in that tool bag because then you can just take it from job to job.
You know, I'm gonna go try that tomorrow because I haven't
In the
haven't
handle.
messed with the level much.
Yeah, I haven't
But I
either.
know there's. I think it doesn't fit in T locks. I think it fits only in Gen 3s.
Okay, but the
I,
tool
I
bag would
think
count.
because it doesn't fit into the slight curved handles. It only fits in
Okay.
the straight handles. I think in Gen 3. But
I
I gotta
do.
go. Somebody asked me a question on Sedge Tool the other day, and I was like, right away I'll say, yeah, it links together. But he had me second guessing this, so I gotta go try
Well,
that out. So if you're listening, I'm still trying to figure out the rail thing.
Well, the
Connection.
level is definitely not a gimmick. It's a very high end, high quality item.
It's
It's
the
very
level.
nice.
It's made by BMI. It's a really good level company and
Yeah.
tape company. Absolutely, German company. They're really high end.
I'll challenge anyone to draw a better line freehand than you can using this as a straight edge. Anyone.
And it's got the V groove, so it fits right on a pipe or meat thermometer.
Yes, you can use it.
So, funny story. You mentioned putting it on a pipe. So I've been installing the built-in.
Man, you got the freaking segues tonight, Ben.
Yeah.
Holy crap.
No, I've been working on the built-in. I've got that's one thing we can talk about what I've been up to. But I put in the hanging rods today, and guess how I made sure that they were level?
And
I
that
used that
concave,
tiny little level and that V groove on top of the round rod. Man, this is a terrible podcast tonight.
That's where, like, we've
You
got
were
all the
you were
buzzwords.
working on your hanging rods
So,
today.
Good
Yep.
example on your rod. One of the reasons why I think I would use this level. I'm not a big fan of the levels that are like 2 inches long.
Such as he can't compose himself.
I'm not, the levels are like 2 inches long. Those aren't that accurate because they're just, I like them to be at least, a good.
It's not
good
about
girthy.
the size of the level, Ronnie. Okay.
What
It's how
would
you use it.
What would you say that was, Sedge? A good girthy, like, is it 12, 14 inches long? Something like that.
This is awful.
But it's 16 inches is like a width of a sustainer, right? So it's like,
Yes.
it's a good 16 incher. What's a whopper?
Mm,
of a level.
yeah. Yeah, it is.
But I do like it. And I think, is that available on the Festool store now, or is that June? I think,
Yeah, I think it's coming out June 3rd.
yeah, well,
next
it's
week.
sweet. And so is the summer sustainer, which it has a koozie for a can. It's got a Festool branding iron and
It
pistol
actually has one of
ever.
those little Yeti can
Yes. Yeah,
Yep.
can
it's
cooler
I
things.
called it a koozie, but it's actually a screw down on the top little
Yeah.
Yeti brand.
And
Um,
those you gave me your Yeti one, and I use that all the time.
yeah, they're
Yeah, they're
nice.
great.
I brought it in to show Rick. He goes, "Hey, dummy, that's what the new Festool one. It's a Yeti screw down."
Yeah,
And I went, "You got to
yeah.
be kidding me! This thing is amazing."
The
Yeah,
only
they're
drawback of
fantastic.
those is when you're empty and you don't know it, and you go for that drink and you look like an idiot because it's actually empty, but the weight of it makes you think it's not. What's in that thing? Have you had that happen yet? You go for it, you're like,
Yes,
you just keep going. You're like, oh, it's empty. Didn't know that.
You
But
know, Ronnie, I could get great clips of
yes.
you all with, sexual undertones
Oh my god,
already from this episode.
I think
this
we can get
episode's
you
going
too.
straight downhill.
Yeah, AI generated turns the whole podcast into something else.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Yep, I can see it. I can see it. Well, that's
Well, I want to share with you guys what I've been doing.
Oh,
So last week, I am happy to say that I worked in the shop for 5 days straight.
wow.
how'd that feel?
Amazing. You know what else
Yep.
felt amazing? I didn't record any of it.
Wow.
So, what I got done last week was I got the 6 cabinet boxes all assembled, finished, edge banded, assembled, drawer boxes created, finished. And then yesterday, I started the install process, the tear out of the old one and the install of all of the new ones. And yesterday, I only made it to the toe kick and the 2 bottom base cabinets because that I had spent a lot of time making sure that it was like in line with the wall, which is something I
Yep.
want to talk about. So I like shimmed and moved and adjusted as necessary because I'm like, this is my base. Everything's just going to get stacked on top of this. All of it's in. I got all of it done. I got the hinge plates. I got the Celiche. They're called Celiche Wind. They're pull up, like
Oh,
piston
cool.
assisted ones that
Yep.
come up. They're on the top. I haven't made the doors or the drawer fronts or anything like that yet, but that's the next step. But I've got all of my trim pieces or my pieces that will accept the trim using the lamello all around the sides. Everything is done, good to go, looks great. But I felt really good that like now this part I did film. I filmed yesterday and today. My idea behind this, I'm documenting all of this on Patreon. I'm sharing a little bit more on Patreon, like behind the scenes type stuff. But for this, I was like, maybe I'll do a YouTube video, and instead of me like going through the motions to show how to build the cabinet and the drawer boxes and all that stuff, how about I just start the video off and say, like I'm turning this into this. Here's how I did it. And then now it's basically it's an installation video.
Yes.
So I will tell you though that the last 2 days I was a lot more frustrated with the fact that I had to keep stopping what I was doing because I was like, oh, I need to film this. It makes everything take longer.
A lot longer. That's why
But
that's why I didn't film the window seat.
It looks good though. Like just looking at it sitting right here, you saw how ugly the previous thing I had. Both of you did. You guys saw it, that stupid built-in thing. Just looking at this without anything on it yet, I'm like, this looks so much better. Because it's so cool because it's all like exactly in line with the wall. Now there will be trim that protrudes out, but it's just like the baseboards, basically, like you would see with anything.
Yeah.
And we have been going back and forth. Originally, we were going to do white oak, riffs on, all the way up, vertical lines, really cool. Then all flat panel, like we did here. Then my wife was like, well, I kind of want to incorporate this same black color, but mix it with the white oak. I'm like, all right, cool. So we came up with a design for that. Well, then all the time went by and we didn't start the project. Anybody can attest to this that talks about a project with their loved one and then finally starts doing it. And it's like, well, I think I want something different. So luckily, the only thing different was the finish on the outside, right? So Then it turned into I want to paint the whole thing and I want to paint it a different color, but I want to have shaker style doors, not flat panel. It needs something. It needs some sort of visual separation. I'm like, all right, cool, we can do that. Well, then it also turned in again to now we're doing white oak, but we're gonna do shaker style with the white oak. So obviously I've got to build the drawer fronts in a slightly different way just because I need that backer behind it, behind the panel. But yeah, it's changed many, many times. Many, many times. And that is why if your spouse wants you to do a project, just do it immediately. Because the longer that they have to see other things or search for other things or think of other things, the more it will turn into something completely different.
True. True. And sometimes for the better. Sometimes I sit on a project for a long time, like years, and I start it migrates over time. And you start going, wait a minute, why would I do that? I could do this. I could do this. And it does help sometimes to do that way.
Yeah.
But it drives you crazy and it floats around in your mind and you can't get closure. But
I think that this is going to turn out. I think it's going to turn out really nice. Like it's coming along very, very well. It fit in the space. I couldn't have asked for a better result. However, here's the issue that I'm struggling with. So I started on the bottom, and I don't know if you remember, Ronnie said you see it all the time, but that opening, the hopes are that those two walls are in line with one another all the way up. Well, it's really hard to tell that until you start having things stacked on top of each other, because I set the base and then set the two bottom cabinets, got those in alignment with each other to where the edges of the cabinets were exactly the same as the walls. I was like, all right, this is good. Well, then I stacked the big cabinets on top. And when I stacked the big cabinets on top, that was not the case, because not only do the walls almost kind of go forward ever so slightly, but they're not. The right side is a slightly different plane than the left side. So what ended up happening, luckily, it was very, very minor. And I think I have an interesting solution on how I'm going to go about doing this. It's just going to take time. If you look on the left side versus the right side, on the right side from about the middle up, the cabinet box is just slightly proud, 1/16 of an inch, 1/8 of an inch, maybe. If you go to the left side from about halfway up, it's about 1/16, 1/8 inch inward, but behind the wall. If you go across the top, and all of the cabinets are in perfect alignment with each other, everything lines up perfectly. All of the seams, they're all dead on, right? At the top, the left side is behind the wall. On the right, it's in front of the wall. So I'm using the Lamello P14 connectors to just snap this stuff in when I'm done. And I'm not doing like mitered corners or anything. I'm going to frame it in. So it's almost like a big, just vertical and horizontal all come together, pop it in there, good to go. Right. But what I'm concerned about is the areas that's behind the wall. When I go to try to clip that in, it's not going to reach. And on the sides where it's protruding, there's going to be a gap behind the trim itself, between the trim and the wall, which that's fine. I can just, caulking makes everything look good, right? So I'm thinking what I might do is get really, really nerdy and actually try to like plane certain areas to get it to where it ends up being a perfect fit.
Plane, are you talking about the back side of the cabinet?
Yes, but not the whole back. Only either the portion that's going to need to get clipped in or the portion that touches the wall. Because again, it's different on different sides. So like each piece, it's like there'll have to be like a taper in some areas. but I don't know. I'm worried about doing that because I don't want to like screw it up 5 times and have to go waste all that material. But
You know, my version of that when you're not creating content is I believe I used a reciprocating saw. That was my plane. I just hacked on the back of it because it doesn't matter, you know, like just whatever it takes to be able to. One project I removed the drywall on the back.
I was just gonna say,
If you take the
remove
drywall
drywall.
off, it gives you a half inch of play.
Yep.
And it's very easy to do.
Or
You can
just
faster.
do
Go ahead.
just do this because no one's ever gonna see it. Mark the back, push it up against there. Put some. We used to use lipstick or whatever. Put it up there. So push it in the wall, and then just take a razor knife and cut out that area, or just take a damn hammer and go bam, 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 and dent the drywall. It's out 1/8 of an inch. Big whoop.
Yeah. Because you don't need that in there anyway. It gives you a
so
lot of
No,
I thought of the problem is that it all has that metal corner bead around that edge.
So you're talking about the side, like the door, what I call the doorway opening, pretty much, like where
Yeah,
the
think of a closet opening,
like the
like
bifold
with the
doors.
bifold doors. That's
Yes.
what it used to be. So all the way around it, there's that, it's an entryway. So it's all got the metal
Right.
corner bead.
but
Right.
not on the back drywall.
Yeah, just on that outside corner.
The
But you're
outside corner is the one that I'm concerned about
oh, oh,
because these cabinets are flush with that opening.
okay.
But because that opening is not exactly in alignment with one another from top to bottom and left to right, that now the air is showing itself, and it's very minor. This
I'm sure.
actually leads directly into the topic that I wanted to talk about.
Put in
But-
paint, make it what it ain't.
Yeah.
Caulk it in.
Is it a painted project?
Nope. It'll be a white oak. But I'm not worried about that. It'll look seamless.
Yeah, those corners make it hard, the metal corners. Yeah, what they did when they built it, they just worry about it looking straight. It doesn't even matter if it's right the other ways. It just that corner bead is right as far as they're concerned. Something I'll add when you said that, I've noticed whenever you're doing a project, this is a center like floating closet, like in the center of your house.
Mm-hmm.
When I'm doing built-ins like on each side of a fireplace, and those are generally outside walls, the walls are generally perfect because when framers build a house, they make sure that their outside walls are square and plumb pretty much. But whenever you get into an interior wall, that's as good as the guy was stripping a chalk line across, and he makes a rectangle. Sometimes that rectangle of that closet is not even like close to aligned with like the outside walls. So it's you think about if these guys are framing up and they got to that closet, they didn't spend a lot of time like figuring out that square. So they can be way off when they're the internal walls.
A door hanger's trick for that, and this is what I've seen, is taking up at that top corner and bottom corner diagonal, tacking a nail and put a string and do it like that. You'll see how the walls are out, and then you're gonna but you don't have the ability to do this. And then you could see where they're not touching, and you can see the gap.
See how far they're off.
And see how far they're off.
Yeah,
But
that's
they
a
knew-
great idea.
I have an opening in my basement that I should have done that and cut the stud wall from underneath and moved it out. And because my doors don't hang well, I got those pre-hung French doors in the basement that I installed the jamb, and I still have the French doors that I still need to paint because I set them afterwards. And I said, "Oh my god!" And the trick of with the knuckle on the hinge and everything, it did it no good. There, you could see the gap where there's no where they meet. The door's out like a half an inch at the bottom, and it's so noticeable. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of a nice little thing for anyone to keep in mind that it's taken me a while to figure out. If it's an interior room and not an outside wall,
Yes,
on it not being very accurate, especially if you're doing a built-in. It's just they're usually way off. This
It's
is
funny you
something
mention that because when I did this, that wall, I mean, this is long. This is like 14, 15 feet wide. That wall was like, I
Yeah.
barely scribed anything.
Yep. It is if it's an
Outside wall.
outside wall. So like when I'm doing deck ceilings, like the one I just finished, and it's like inside angles, like under outside of a porch, I check every angle because I have to cut all my mitered all my perimeter gutters. They're generally dead on. They're very rarely off, and it's because they're exterior walls. And I've kind of realized that just by struggling through it. But interior walls are so far off. Even staircases are off in houses. Like they're not, they
Oh,
just,
no.
it's where they put them. It doesn't mean it's right. It's, they just have a rectangle cut out and they lay the stairs down there, but they're generally, if you looked at them, they're not parallel like with the outside walls of the house in any way, shape, or form. You know, the floor installers are probably the only people that realize that when they start installing the floors, because they're doing that pattern. They realize they have to get out the trim saw to cut the floorboard that maybe
Yeah.
the length of the stairs, it changes by like a half an inch.
It's
And no
just
one,
like a
you know,
this is like drywall and outside corners. You ever see a drywall a finisher, a drywall finisher with a machinist square?
no,
Oh, they throw the corner bead on there and they go, it's close enough for
build
government
it up.
work.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
nothing square in your house on outside corners on drywall.
There isn't. It's interesting, but you learn that when you start doing built-ins. Built-ins call out everything, or window seats, like Sedge's window seat thing.
Yeah.
All that's
Huh.
it's amazing that
I
you would never know until you start doing that type of projects in your house.
Yeah.
And that's
It was
where
out 2
a lot of,
inches.
yeah, that's a lot. And
Yeah.
it's funny as a professional, like when you're in someone's house, it's I think instead, I'm sure you ran into this a lot. You don't want to call out to someone that they have this in their house because they don't know it. So
Yes.
your job is to install it so that they don't know it. But
Yes.
I think that's what separates a professional from like a different level of professional, like maybe like a little more of a hack, is they would go, I don't know what to do. Your walls are 2 inches off from here to here. And the homeowner's sitting there going, what? I don't know what to do either. It's like, you don't tell them, you just make it happen and they don't know the difference.
Right.
Yep.
Things. And that's what the difference in somebody you pay top dollar and somebody you pay who doesn't know what they're doing.
So
Mikey would start explaining to people about how something was out or what we did for the install. I pulled him aside and I said, "Shut your pie hole, dude.
Yep.
You are a professional in kitchen cabinet installer, built-in installer, trim guy now. They don't need to know that stuff.
You're dead
They
on.
hired you to make it right."
You know, my dad worked with me for like 8-9 years. And my dad was, you know, he could tell a story or whatever. And when the homeowners came, sometimes he'd be like, boy, look at this. Look what we had to do. And I told my dad, I was like, don't share that kind of stuff with the homeowner. He's like, why? I'm like, because that's a conversation. We don't get paid for conversations.
Yes.
Don't tell them. Just, yep, everything's great. Because he'll be like, how's it going? Any problems? Any issues? Nope, we're good. No issues.
well, you know, I did screw this up here, but you know, here's how I fixed it, but you'll never see it.
Yeah, and then people are like, "Oh, well, let me analyze this closer than I ever would before." Oh, I see it. I see what you're talking about. And then at same note, I talked to a guy that does what I do in Louisville and Cincinnati, and he's ran across things before where homeowners have had an issue with something, and they'll call him back, and he's like, "Well, that's not part of what I did." And I'm like, "Well, if you saw that as an issue, why didn't you tell me when you were at my house?" And he's like, "Do you want me to call out everything wrong with your house? Because I could do that. If you want to get out your notepad and want me to bash your house and tell you everything wrong with it, I don't think that's something you want me to do." And it's like, you do have to kind of keep your mouth shut at a certain point.
Yes.
You're going to be having conversations that add no value to your pocket. It's just, you got to let things go.
Yeah.
Houses aren't perfect.
We had a saying, don't point out mistakes. And I would joke around with Mikey because he would make some mistakes. And he goes, no one needs to know except you and I. And then I'd look at him, I go, that's right. You and me are the only ones that know we made that mistake.
Exactly.
And anybody else I choose to tell.
Hey, you want your perfect example today. We were ripping 5.5 inch, like basically decking boards to cap up this outside edge. And this was not my fault. It was Cameron. Guess what? I'm looking at right now, the fence to the Festool table saw. He didn't put it back in the lid. So what did I do? put the lid back on the saw. It was in the van. We get out there working. I'm all excited. I'm like, this is going to be a perfect application for it. I'm like, Cameron, where's the fence to the saw? He's like, it's on my workbench. I was like, oh my gosh. So I used a metal straight edge and I clamped it to the table. And it spent forever making sure it was in a line and everything. But here's where it's funny. I actually, this makes total sense, but it was a enough piece of metal that I used the outfeed table. And I thought, well, I'll clamp it to the outfeed part as well. And it's going to be like a great fence because I was cutting 12-foot long decking boards. But that's where I realized it's the same as a miter saw station. You don't want to have a fence that long because it's almost impossible to keep that decking board up against a fence that's 4 feet long. You're looking at it and it's all of a sudden it's like going across, it's creeping around. I'm like, what's going on? And I realized that's why the fence is so short, because you don't want to try to keep all that material straight up against that long of a fence. Okay, that's a little side thing. Learned that today. But we go to install it and it's about a 1/4 inch shy on this one place where it meets up. And it's getting to be where every time we're working, we've got 1 to 2 cameras on us at all times, which is kind of annoying. We should always have to keep it in mind. And Cameron's like, is that gap okay? And he was like, oh, well, you've got to have that for ventilation. I was like, yes, we do.
Smart.
Yes, we do.
Yes, man.
I'm like, of course, that's ventilation. Of course.
Yes.
So my plan was to see how it looked when we were done. If I needed to, I was going to rip another thin piece and put another, but it actually did look good. And it actually did create ventilation because we capped the whole bottom and then you have the decking on top. So that does allow some airflow through there. So it's okay. But that's the other thing. Now you're always working around cameras. You got to be very aware. You're not pointing out your mistakes in front of the customers. Sometimes if they were watching or they could hear conversations, because there are a lot of discussions that happen when you're making an install. You know, just like if you and Sedge were working together, you'd be like, look, our wall's off this much. What's this is off? The homeowner would be like, oh gosh, my house is off. My house is wrong.
Jason, you made me think of something earlier, and I don't know if you saw me look behind at this build-in I did 16 years ago. Okay. Everybody comes in and goes, oh my God, that's beautiful. And they look at it. Okay. So my outside wall, when I started from there, and that was dead on. But this interior wall behind me, wait a minute. Look at that. Is that a nice scribe or what?
About the scribe.
It's not scribed. I'm out. It's tight up top. In the middle, there's probably maybe a 3/16 gap. And I looked at that and I go, the only one who's going to notice that is me.
Yep.
And possibly Ronnie and you, Jason, that come over and go, oh, he didn't scribe. Who cares?
Oh, you know what? I wouldn't. I look at the whole thing. I don't ever nitpick and go down to the level when I'm like start looking at that. If it looks right from which I don't see anything where you are right now. It looks fine to me. So I don't do that. I think as long as it looks right.
So I used to get into, the farm table class, Ronnie. You came to that, right?
Yes.
Okay. And I show people how to, for the top. Okay. And I would joke around about this. Don't get caught on the detail, but we would rip parallel and then square it. Okay. And somebody would get caught on the details. It's not a perfect 90. And I go, looks great from here. And someone said to me, I go, hey, do you know anybody that walks up to your dining room table now with a machinist square and says it's not dead nuts?
No.
No. And then one guy who was this really cool, his name's David. He comes and goes, you don't know my son-in-law. He carries a machinist square.
Well,
this guy is a phenomenal. He's a doctor. He's a phenomenal builder. Okay, that's his, recreation is out in his shop, and he's got a to die for shop up in Toronto. And he looked at me and he goes, afterwards, he goes, I never really thought about that. I've always got too caught up in a detail here and there. And he goes, and then everybody in class would go, it doesn't have to be, does it? No, it doesn't. And it looks perfectly 90.
Right.
But they were usually dead on 90s. But I go, don't get stuck on that.
This conversation is literally it could not be going any better to what I wanted to talk about today. we are talking about already. What I wanted to pitch to you guys is like, how good is good enough when you're building stuff for
Oh,
your house? And like, we can talk about the whole idea of it, being filmed or not filmed or whatever, but this project for some reason, because we're all woodworkers, and every single person listening to this that's a woodworker will say the same thing. They overanalyze everything. They notice the mistakes. They notice the problems, but 99.9% of anybody coming to your house would never point out you're way harder on yourself than they are. And I found myself on this project because I'm like, I just want to get this project done. I'm not filming the assembly. Like, there's things I screwed up. I struggled getting square cuts for a while because I'm an idiot and I kept messing with my table saw. But I dealt with that. None of that was on film. Uh, I had parts of the material that split when I was screwing it together, and like just little things like that. And I'm like, no one is gonna know any of this stuff. Like
mm-mm.
this project, I just want to do it, knock it out, get it done, and it's gonna look great, and no one's gonna know any different. And I've been flying through this thing because of that. But if I was doing this for a customer that was paying me a lot of money, I wouldn't be as comfortable doing this. And here's another really good example. So I used Baltic birch for this. Why? Because I like how stable it is. I like how flat it is. And I was able to get it at a really, really great price, honestly. Um, but it's like B grade. So it has the little football patches and stuff in it. So like if you open up my cabinets, like you can see some of those somewhere. I would never ever do that for like a client's home, or like if I was trying to build like a super high end kitchen or anything like that, right? But I was thinking to myself, that's what made me think about this. Like, this is something I'm building for my house that's functional, that people are going to come over and they're going to be like, wow, that looks really nice. And they're never going to know the difference. Like,
Mm-hmm.
screw it. Let's just do it. Which the reason why this came back to my head again today was because of this issue. And now I find myself overthinking what to do about this, when in reality, all I have to do is just cut the trim and stick it on there. And if there's gaps, I just put some damn caulking there and it's fine. You would never know the difference. So why am I fighting it so much?
You're
Yeah.
chasing perfection, dude.
Which I
Yeah.
don't
Because it's
understand
yours.
why.
Because it's yours.
It's mine, but I
No,
mean,
I understand
I did
why.
shortcuts throughout this process. But here's the
Mhm.
funny thing is, now that I'm filming the installation process, there are so many things that I could have filmed today and shown how I went about correcting it, and I didn't, because all I cared about was, I just want to get this corrected and do the best that I can. I'll just cover the next big highlight. So now I find myself going, well, what was the point of doing an install video if I'm not showing how I corrected common errors? But there are so many little things that happened that it's too much to capture in a video. You
Mhm.
know what I mean?
You- Go ahead, Ronnie.
No, I was just going to say, he asked why he's chasing perfection. That's one of the pitfalls, I think, of social media. I think when I did my basement, it took me 7 years to do my basement finish, and I finished out like the top of my house. There's built-ins everywhere. I was going on my corporate boy knowledge of internet, woodworking magazines, and the tools that I had. And to me, it was fine. And it's not perfect at all. It's funny. It's been long enough now that I know in my mind I'd like to rip it all out and do it over again. Not the base, but everything's, but the built-ins and things like that. I did like raised panel doors first time, like that kind of stuff. And I used MDF on raised panel
Mhm.
doors. Just to give you an example. And now sprayed. I'm like, ooh, these are nice. I didn't have a lot to go by on that, but people would come over and be like, oh, this is amazing. But you're like, why do I think it has to be perfect? Well, not only are we seeing constant perfection on posts that appear perfect, you're
Mm.
also getting constant comments on your videos and people reminding you of every possible thing that you should have or could have, would have done. So it's
Ooh.
like our brains are so messed up right now. It takes away the enjoyment. The only
Yeah.
way you can get enjoyment is by doing it and not filming it. That's what it comes
So
to. That you feel good yourself. You don't have to listen to everybody else telling you should have done something differently. That's kind of what it comes down to, I
and
think.
so I have a lot of friends from the South Florida Woodworkers Guild. I was involved for about 6, 7 years with it. And at the end of every meeting, we would have, and a lot of guilds are like this, your show and tell. And there was a gentleman in there that I truly admired. He has become a phenomenal friend. We keep in touch like every 2 years. But and okay, so long story short, he was a plumber. And this guy had an eye for design. Oh my God, his love of woodworking was unparalleled. And he did something once. And Ronnie, you remind me, you were saying people pick it apart. Back then we didn't have social media, uh, but people are just will pick anything apart. So one of the biggest hacks in the guild would comment. The guy never built anything. He would comment on stuff, and he was the biggest hack I've ever seen, but a mouth on him. So Dave passed around this box that he did this beautiful, he vacuum pressed it and hand scraped it, and just the most beautiful veneer, book match veneer on it. And this guy just, I said, hey, 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 in front of everybody as they passed it around. Look at this. There's a little bit of tear out here. No one could see it, but it was there, right? And Dave just went, oh, yeah, thanks. Elliot. I'll call it his name. He didn't know how abrasive he was. He was a really nice guy, too. Everybody in that guild was nice. And Dave said something to me. I go, Dave, did that guy piss you off? And he goes, no. The world is, this guy was so grounded. He just said, it takes all kinds. And he goes, think about the world if everybody was perfect. And he goes, he makes it interesting because he doesn't realize how abrasive he is. So I have been taught this my whole life. You should, by my parents, you should take something away from everybody, right? You learn from everybody. So when I would have a class, and you guys have had this, you're in a group of people, and there's a freaking pill that takes air out of the room.
Every class.
Yep. And
every time
when people would come up to me and say, that guy's a pill, I go, yeah, isn't it great? And they go, what do you mean? I go, think about it. Think about that person's life, the way that person, he or she is. I go, this makes life interesting. And they would look at me and they go, oh, yeah. And then the rest of the time, I'd see people shaking their head going, here it comes, but it makes it. That's what life's about for me. It's just all these different personalities and how people, and Ronnie, we saw it recently, and I won't call out that, but we saw it. And, but I thought it was interesting. I just take it with a grain of salt. And that's what Dave taught me.
It's true. And that's a good point. And I think sometimes we get caught up in like wanting to be right or wanting to tell people why they're right. If you could just be like, that's great. It's great.
but the takeaway is this guy did almost unparalleled standard of work, but he was giving enough to bring something in to share with everybody, but he knew it wasn't perfect. There's a lot of people out there in social media that probably built a dozen boxes before they got it right, but you only see that one box in social media, don't you?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I think it's better to show people you like. One of my favorite takes was with Jason Hibbs when he pulled the drawer open, all the drawers, the show
fell off the
and
table,
it came tumbling down. I go, that's because guess what? I've done that with old tool chests before. It shows you're human to make those mistakes and to share those.
I know what you're talking about. I don't make mistakes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I make zero mistakes. I'm perfect in every way.
I on a Festool Live the other day, I made it really, and I almost feel like people were cringing watching. And somebody came up to me one time. They go, "Hey, do you make those mistakes on purpose?" I go, "No, I'm human."
Yeah.
My dad taught me. He goes, You learn from your mistakes.
Yeah.
And then he'd go, as long as you learn.
You know, I know I've said this before because I've learned it more and more woodworking is making mistakes.
Yes.
When you learn most things are from mistakes and you end up doing it better because of that mistake. That's what's interesting. Or you learn something because of that mistake. You learn, you're like, oh, this is how I scribe because I didn't, or I take the drywall off because I didn't think about the end result of when it hit the other side. I mean, that saved me before on a built-in. It's taking the drywall off. It was the easiest thing to do, you know. And do customers know I took the drywall off? No.
Well, you guys, you had mentioned, just taking a hammer and banging it. I remember in Greenwood, I was doing some work on our closet and our master. I remodeled our master bathroom, and when I was changed out the trim, there was a door that was in our bathroom that led to the closet. So you had to go into the bathroom, open this door to get into our closet. And I was like, this is stupid. Let's just take the door out. So we took the door out, and when I redid the trim, um, I pulled the existing trim off, and I saw, you could tell somebody had beaten the crap out of this with a hammer. And I didn't know at the time why that was. And I remember talking about it on Instagram and stuff. And somebody actually, like multiple people actually wrote me, they're like, that are in the trades. And they're like, yeah, that's how you get if an opening is not even, that's how you get your stuff to sit flush to the wall. So you don't have to put a bunch of caulk in it. And I'm like, oh, okay. Kind of makes sense. So like thinking about that now, I might do that, right? Because even if it has that corner bead, it's not the whole way up. It's only halfway up.
Yeah, you can beat it with a hammer.
I can beat it with a hammer, and it's going to just push it to the side. It's not even going to.
Yeah,
And then
or
I'll just have the trim that
strategically
goes
and
over the top of it.
professionally beat it with a hammer.
Or
Yep.
just cut down your caulking tube a little bit lower for a bigger bead.
Yeah.
That's it. You know, and something else that's interesting. We've been in our house almost 20 years, and it's amazing to me how many things that, like, even in the last year, that I'll see, and I'll be like going, I've never noticed before what they did here, what they did here. Oh, I see what they did. They didn't do this. Those professionals who built our house, they ran into problems, and there's things that it took me 20 years to find. And I always think it's so funny that builders have a 1 year warranty for you to like let them know. It's like, yeah, but you got 1 year. It takes you longer than a year to find all the problems.
Yes.
Longer than a year. There was one day I was down on the floor and my cabinet doors were open in our bathroom. And I look back on the back wall and I see someone just took a 3-inch hole saw and tried like 6 times to get the hole right where the drain was. I've never seen that before. 20 years. I've never seen it. And I saw it back there and I was like, they just were just going at it, being like, okay, it's there. Nope, it's here. No, it's here.
we had an install. I might have talked about it on the podcast a couple years ago. The guys in the industrial park where they called Mikey and I the all-night installers. We made the upper cabinets. We could not find a stud, and it was horrible.
I've ran into that before.
We called it Swiss cheese. So the last cabinet was going up when the owner came back about 6:30 in the morning, and I go, get it up there now, get it up there now, to hide it. It was Swiss cheese. We actually cut the drywall out across so we could see where the studs were. And in Fort Lauderdale, it was metal studs, right? So it was like, it was a nightmare installation.
Well, there was a time in I would say the 90s to close to 2000 where they were building a lot of houses 24 inches on center.
Yes.
And it will throw you off when you're doing a built-in trying to
find. God.
And they finally made it it's not against code. They couldn't do it anymore, but they were doing at one point, I call them the starter houses. They were building them 24 inches on center and they were using styrofoam on the outside.
Yes.
And then vinyl siding on top of that.
Isn't that horrible?
It was awful. And one of my friends built his house and he had a leak under his kitchen his sink. And I was like, that's a big deal. They're going to take your kitchen cabinets out. He's like, no, they said they're going to get it from the outside. I was like, what do they mean? They built so many of that house. They came and removed the vinyl siding, cut the styrofoam out and fixed the plumbing leak in the kitchen from the outside. They knew
What?
it was. And I was like, your house is built out of styrofoam and vinyl siding. And then they made it,
That's
they
what
made
my
that
house
against
is.
building code. They made that
What
against
mine
building code.
is.
Yeah, and then they made it they have to have sheathing on the corners at minimum because it was making it where it could rack. The house could actually rack because it was all foam board on top of 2x4s. It was crazy. But yeah, when it's a 24 inches on center, you really have trouble finding the studs. I've ran into that before.
So funny story that you mentioned that. So the wall that's behind my cabinets that I just put in for the built-in, on the back side of that wall is the downstairs bathroom, just a very, very small little bathroom. So what I did, we had talked about this before, I built everything to include the depth of the cabinets to be shallow because at the time I was going to use those little spacer plugs that I had talked about on here before. I didn't end up using those because I didn't end up needing to because the gaps were so small. It was just probably a miscalculation, but the gaps were so small that the spacer plugs that I had they weren't needed, right? But my idea is okay, I'm going to anchor these things into the opening and then down to the toe kick below, and everything worked great. I mean, it's rock solid, this thing. And then I was just basically just attaching the cabinets to each other where I could hide screws, whatever. And I put these strips along the back, wide strips, wide enough to where I could peg the top of the cabinet and the bottom of the cabinet above it into this plywood. I was like, I'll just put plywood back here. That gives me something to screw into anywhere I want. I don't need to worry about studs. Well, guess what? There was, and this is a 60-inch wide opening. Guess how many studs were on that back wall, which was actually about 80 inches wide? Two.
Really? Wow.
Two. Well, there was one. Oh, hey, balloons. There was one in each corner. 24 inches for that interior wall.
Jesus Christmas.
Yep. I was like, this is very strange that there's only two studs in this wall, but sure enough, there was.
I'll tell you what saves me, and I love them. I love that painters are not perfectionists because that saves me all the time. You can usually find studs just by shining a light or looking at an angle. It happened to us on the job we're on right now. It has that exterior trendy shiplap farmhouse, that's going to be, I don't know what they're going to do with these when these aren't cool anymore, but they have the shiplap running, not the, it's like the board and batten look.
Yep.
And I don't run into that a lot, but I have to have studs because the thing we installed, is 1,000 pounds, and I have to make sure that it's going into studs and not just in the trim boards. And the only thing that saved us on this project was I could see where the finish carpenter did the three nails real quick.
Yeah.
It was on 16 intervals, but that's the only way that I knew where the studs were when we came in on this project. Usually I do it into brick. It's very rare I do it into any kind of siding, but I stressed about that. Like, how am I going to find the studs? And it was because of those. They do a poor job of filling them, or they shrink a little bit, or both. Yeah. And that filler shrinks, and you can kind of see it. And it happens in drywall too. Usually you can see where those studs are once you really look closely. There's even a difference in the texture of the wall. It'll be real smooth where the studs are.
So you finished up that job today, huh?
Yes, we finished it up, which is great. I'm excited.
I watched a story. It looked great.
Thank you. It turned out, that was a strange job. The people who own that house own over 50 wineries across the country. They're based out of Napa Valley. I've never seen them, met them. I've only talked to their assistant, and I don't know if they've ever been there at this house. It's very like Airbnb-ish, kind of like the furniture, everything. There's no personal items, but it's fully furnished, fully everything. And they just built it recently. And I think I've been talking to her assistant, is who I'm talking to. But first I thought it was the builder. And then I started realizing that it was already sold. But I've never seen anyone there. I've been there 5 times. And
did you say 50?
They own over 50 wineries across North America. And this,
Said
Wow.
you don't own 50 wineries, Sedge?
Like 44.
and this is based, Napa Valley is where a lot of theirs are. And I found all
Wow.
this out because the deposit check had the name of the corporation on it. So that's where I found out where this was all coming from. But there's a couple of times where I actually thought, am I doing the right house? Because I've never seen a homeowner. I just showed up and I measured, I sent the quote. They said, we want to do it. This is one of those things where you could go to the wrong house.
Yeah.
The thing that made me feel better were there were these orange junction boxes up underneath the deck, and I didn't know what they were for. And we were going to be covering those up. They had wire connections in them. And I sent it to her and she said, well, I'll have to stop by the house and see what that is. So that I knew we were at least talking about the same picture.
Okay, cool.
Because it would really, really suck to do the wrong house. And it'd be so easy to do. It'd be so easy to do, but that didn't happen. But that was an interesting job. I'm glad to get it done.
How many
was-
square foot's the house?
I would say 5 or 6,000 or 6,000. It's on an acre.
Nice.
It's right across from a winery. And
Yeah.
I'm thinking that they must have bought that. And that's why I told Cameron, I think maybe it's the owner's house or / they bought it as a corporate. When people
Yeah.
come to town, this is where they stay.
Yeah.
That's because it's right across the street from it. So I'm thinking that's what it is. So yeah, I'm glad to get that one done. And it's been nice having Cameron this week.
Yeah.
I'm already so spoiled. But you know what? Every year he gets smarter, and he's just like, it used to be, Dad, I'll work if you take me and get me a knife at the end of the week. Okay. That's what it used to be.
Yeah. That
Now
doesn't work anymore.
he's tracking his hours. When he's riding home in the van, he sends them to Kelly. And I'm sitting there going, man, he sends a text every day with his hours. That when you do that every day, you don't lose track of your hours. He's got to stop doing that.
Yeah.
Are you paying him hourly?
Yes. Yeah. So I'm going to have to pay him hourly next year when he co-ops with me. We have to even show a W-2. I'm going to pay him as a lawnmower this year, mowing guy. So I can just pay him check. He'll make more that way, but then starting next year, he'll be getting like an actual W-2, which he'll make less, cause he's doing the whole tax thing and everything. But, my CPA told me that when he's mowing, doing things like that, you can just give him a straight, check. So we're going to treat him like a mower during the summer, which he does, by the way, do mowing. He has a trailer and he's mowing our rental houses as needed, and 3 that we take care of weekly. He just takes care of it. I don't have to say anything. He got home yesterday. He's like, I'm going to go mow. It's like an old guy. He's like, I'm going to go mow.
Who's he? Forrest Gump?
Yeah. He's like, I'm going to go mow. Yeah. But that's one of the big ones. We've got a lot of big projects coming. So I'm glad I've got knock one out at a time. This is a busy time going to June.
Yeah.
He wants things done by 4th of July.
Yep.
Of
Kind of
course.
that's the next target kind of date. And then we'll have another little spurt after that. I think I'm meeting with a customer that sent me pictures, and it's a massive, massive like deck ceiling deck. It's like it looks like it's like a $30,000 project. Can I give you an idea? And I'm meeting him later on this week. I think he wants to do it. I've already given him.
How much would you charge Ronnie to build, let's say, like a covered portion over my patio? Because I can't get anybody to even respond to me, give me an estimate, nothing now.
Really?
Yep.
That's really.
I did have a company that told me they would do one of these cool, like super high-end pergolas that have like the louvered roof and all that stuff, and it would be custom to the size of my thing. 60 grand.
Yeah, I can do those as well, but I wouldn't recommend them. They are for some people, but for yours, what you're wanting, I would do the path you were going down. I would be,
I don't think it's going to happen.
Oh, it'll happen. I can walk you through it.
You want to come up here and walk me through it?
I can walk you through. I told you the little trick. You need to find a framer to find a framing crew that is working near you and let them come and do that as a weekend thing. Leave the framing. Then you just take care of getting the roof put on, take care of the vinyl trim guy to come over and do the other part. And it will save you a ton of money, and the other way you'll get it done.
That's
Especially when
terrifying to
those
me, though.
guys work for somebody, they would love to do a side project, come over and do that. You've already seen the house they framed, so you know they're capable of it. And that's I mean, that's one of the best ways. It takes a little bit of legwork, but if you can find those guys framing, they would gladly, especially when they're younger, they'll gladly take that on.
I did talk to one company, not to mention this. Right when we got back from Germany, I did talk to one guy. He was the owner of this company that's been around here for like 50 years, 60 years. And he talked to me for a really long time about what I wanted to do, how their process worked. He sent me uh, some stuff through email. I sent him pictures, but I haven't heard anything back, and I don't know if I was supposed to basically go through, because he charges to come out and do an estimate, which is smart. I think that's very smart. I don't know why more people don't do that. It's like $100 consultation fee just so it's not a waste of time for them to come out.
Right.
So I think I want to pay that because I told him what it is I want, but we were discussing some of the things that I spoke to the other company about, and I was like, yeah, they were, they were getting with their engineer to find out if they were going to dig the posts into the ground off of the concrete or if they were going to drill through the concrete. And he told me straight up, he was like, I'll tell you right now, the one thing we would not do is drill into your concrete and pour separate footers. And he was explaining to me why. He's like, some companies will do that, but what ends up happening is if you for some reason don't hit the frost line, or it's done incorrectly during the wintertime when it gets cold and that ground moves up and down, that's moving your entire roof up and down. And he's like, so
Oh,
we would not do that. He's like, if we were going to do it, I would want to do it off of your concrete. And I'm like, that's what I want. I don't want it to be in my concrete. I want it to be off of it. So I was just kind of impressed by that. The dude just talked to me forever, like about all this stuff. So he's the farthest I've gotten. And I guess I need to go back and reference that email again, but I'm going to be traveling a lot over the next 3 weeks. So I probably won't be able to do it anytime soon. But he also told me, he's like, if you're looking to get this done this summer, he's like, it's just not going to happen right now. Like we'd be looking at November, December if you wanted to do something like
wow.
this. Yeah.
All right, that sounds reasonable. So it sounds like he's a decent, like,
Yeah.
in the industry, because that's where I've already, and it's amazing to me. I met in the last week or two. I've told people they're looking at like at the earliest, like Septemberish range, and they're like, "What?" And I'm thinking, really? I mean, do you really think you're going to call me in like June and you're going to get it by 4th of July? I mean,
Right.
really, if you could get it, there's kind of an issue with my company.
Yeah.
If you can say that, that's kind of an issue.
That's a good
And
point.
if somebody says, I can get you next week, really? Why?
Yeah.
How could you get me next week? That means you have absolutely nothing in your pipeline. That's
Yeah.
kind of scary.
That's
Hey,
a
Ronnie,
valid
can
point.
I go back to something?
Yes.
Used to pay Cameron and pocket knives.
Well, that was an example. It was much better than that. No, it's much better than that. It goes to a Jeep. Um,
Yep.
uh, a crazy amount of stuff for his Jeep. Like
Yeah.
the
Oh
this
yeah.
or that or this or that. There was about a year and a half of just straight up Jeep things. Like he always had something that was, and that stuff's not cheap. So
No.
it comes out okay. He had sushi today for lunch. I mean, it's like I take care of him.
Hello.
I take care.
Wow.
We I kind of see that as part of his compensation. We go to really good places for lunch. So I make it where he won't want to go work for someone else. Like
Yeah.
Kelly's dad, for example, who's doing hay, and he's going to steal him away for tomorrow and Friday, which he pays very well as well. And he's told
Yep.
Kelly several times, he's like, I don't want to take him from Ronnie. I know he's working with him, but he does like 400 acres of hay. Crazy.
Wow.
That takes like every day from daylight to dark mowing just to get to the point where you turn around and do the rolling thing. So when
Yep.
Cameron goes to help him, he has another tractor that has I'm learning so much about farm stuff. I had no idea before, like not very long ago. You have to mow it, then you have to take this thing that's a raker that puts
Yep.
it up in kind of like a thing. And
Yep.
then another thing is a baler that comes and puts it in so Cameron runs the raker one and
Yeah.
going
It's a
tomorrow
th-
and Friday and
it's
doing
uh,
that.
it's like a Thatcher, but it fluffs it and
It,
puts it
it,
into the
it puts it in a row.
and also aerates it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And then so he puts them in rolls, and he has all these storage buildings. Some of them was the shop that his father built, the wood shop. It's like 150 long foot building, about 50. And he fills it up.
Wow.
And he has buyers in Montana and out west that come and buy with semis. They come and pick it up, and they pay a premium for hay that comes from here because it's better than like out west. So he just sells it bulk. He's kind of like a wholesaler, and the guy shows up and he sells it all year long. And he's retired, and he's going to be 80 in September. I hope when I'm 80 that that I feel like doing that, and I'm out running tractors and balers and all that kind of stuff. It's crazy.
And that's your father-in-law?
Yes, yes.
Wow, what a hard-working son of a gun, huh?
He is, and he doesn't need to work. He does this just because he enjoys it. He just takes care of it and does he said if he stopped working, he thinks he'd die. That's what he says. He can't stop moving. He just gets and just moves and yeah, I hope I'm like that when I'm his age.
Same.
Yeah.
I hope I make it to his age.
Yeah, exactly. Because he's already in that 79 range. And it's like I feel like once you pass that 74, 75, it's like, yay, winning.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've got to manage Cameron. Everybody wants him now. I've noticed my friends even like, I know you're busy, but could Cameron come install this? Could Cameron come do this? So it's like, it's a new reality for me that I'm seeing him getting pulled different directions the same way that I am. And I have to kind of share him already. I'm seeing that, which is a good thing. It's a good thing because
maybe he starts his own business, Fulton Fine Handyman Services.
well, he's talked about that. He's talked about also some of his friends like starting to use them, and I encouraged him to do it. I'm like, yeah, because you can only do so much. But it's all a scale thing. It's like where you want to be. That's kind of
I wonder if Cam would be interested in coming and building a roof.
That's
structure.
what I'm talking about. That's a perfect example. That's how it happens. People are like, we know you're busy, but could Cameron come in your van with all your tools? No, and also I will say he does have a nice collection of tools already. I'd say for his age, but he's also right now fixated on a work truck / van or something. He is heavy looking right now, and I agree with it because you can't work out of a Jeep. So he knows that next year's the senior year. He's going to have to look at one of his first purchases is going to be like something to work out of. So we've been talking a lot about that. That's like our side conversation. So he's looking at that.
Or he gets your Mercedes and you just get a new one.
You know what? We talked about that, but mine is so loaded down.
Yeah.
Because it was supposed to be an RV. I couldn't probably find the equivalent to what I have right now. Like the way that it's like leather, heated seats, crazy. You can't find a Sprinter like that easily unless you spec it out yourself. So his plan is to get something used, same as I did. I drove that Chevy Express for like 12 years. He wants to get something along that line and then get his Sprinter after that, his second one. That's his plan. So we'll see how that goes. But
wicked cool.
Yeah, I'm excited for him. He does need that. Right now he's really on the line of that. He's looking at trucks that with like a camper bed on it, maybe with like a slide out. So he can also use it for his dirt bike trips and things like that, and kind of use it as a dual purpose vehicle. But God, what's shocking? We were driving back from Lexington, and kids love to build cars online. I've realized this. It's just a pastime. They go to, like, when they start talking about a car, they go to the website and they start building it. He built a Chevrolet 2500 truck, and he was up to $86,000.
Holy crap.
Checking boxes.
Surprised.
Checking boxes. He was at $86,000. That's amazing to me. That's supposed to be like almost a work truck, but $86,000. And he told me he's built one already for over 100. It's just crazy to me that's where they are.
Trucks ain't cheap now.
No, they're not. They're not. But he's been looking at Tundras and everything. It's good. He's just getting familiar with the market. Vans are hard. Really, on like a Chevy Express, for example, you can find one with 100,000 miles. That's the way to go because those things can run forever. It's an engine on a chassis with air conditioning. There's not much to them. They last and they haven't changed them in 25 years. They're still the same thing. So I feel like that's the best bang for the buck, except for the paint falls off from them. And I think it's true with the Fords too. Why does the paint fall off from them? It's weird.
It's cheap.
I guess I've heard if you go with any color other than white, it doesn't fall off, which I see that. If you ever see like a Chevy Express van that's like black or blue, or they usually look pretty good. It's the white ones. Paint just falls off. They must be painting them with kills.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have something completely off the topic we were just talking about, but I made a big purchase yesterday.
Oh,
Did you guys see my stories?
no,
Yes, I did.
I did not see it.
I ordered a new dust collector,
What kind of dust collector?
an Oneida V3000.
Is it like the big, is it the one that's so heavy you have to like use a forklift to put it up on the thing?
I know it's recommended to use the another person when you're putting the motor and stuff on top, but screw that. I go to the gym. All right, I'm gonna do it
Yeah.
myself. Um, actually, I'm gonna have Sedge probably come help me.
That's-
But
I will.
I
I work for Pen Knives.
I've gotten a lot of questions.
Days are
I
over.
posted a picture about it yesterday, and there was two things. I talked about this today in my stories, so if you watch them later, you'll see. But there's two things that I got a lot of. First was, why are you getting rid of the Harvey? What's wrong with it? Why do you not like it? Never said that. Never said anything negative about it. The other thing was people assuming that I partnered with them or asking if I got it for free. And I was like, why does that have to come to this? So I did a set of stories today, and I was like, look, here's how it is. No, it was not free. Could I have gotten one for free? Yup. Sure could have. But when you take free stuff, there's obligations that are behind it. And those obligations make things a lot more stressful and unenjoyable. And I'm at the position now where I would much rather just buy it, because realistically, I'll probably make the money back on a YouTube video. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But it's sad that like that's the thing that's always scared me so much about being in social media and having this, for lack of a better term, power, right, of persuasion, because so many people are buying things that you're talking about. And whether you think something is good or bad, if you ever steer away from that thing that you said good things about, people will automatically assume that I'm not being paid by the company anymore. I don't like it anymore, or because, somebody else gave me another tool, or they're paying me money to talk about it. That's why I've dragged my feet for so long on getting a different dust collector. Same thing happened when I got rid of the bandsaw. Man, the comments that I got on YouTube, like, why'd you get this? I just bought a Harvey because of your video. It's like, I'm not allowed to get different things. You know what I mean? It's a shame, but I am very excited about it. It could, I thought it was going to be like a 3-week turnaround time, which is why I waited until I got back. I was going to do it while I was in Germany. Thank God I didn't, because the sales rep that I talked to is like, oh, well, the V3000 ships in like a week.
Where
And
does
I
it
was
ship
like,
from?
well, Syracuse, New York.
Okay.
So said, I ordered it yesterday, and he's like, yeah, it'll be there next week. I'm like, next week doesn't work. I'm going to be in Georgia. And I was like, well, what about the following? I'm like, the following week's not going to work because I'm going to be in Boston. I was like, can we schedule it for like the 3rd week of June? And then like don't ship it before like Monday the 17th or whatever. I was like, I'll be in Ohio, for for one night, but I'll be back and I can accept the thing. But I didn't want that. It's like 10 boxes or 11 boxes. I didn't want it to show up.
Wow.
Yeah. And
Just
it comes UPS.
Just have it shipped to my house.
It comes UPS?
Yeah, it comes UPS. I said, I'm assuming you guys use a third-person logistics company, right? And they're like, yeah. He's like, well, it comes UPS. I'm like, okay, well, it's not really the same thing. I'm like, so I can't schedule a delivery. I was like, my wife's not going to be ready or be able to accept 10 boxes, one of which is probably very heavy because it's a motor.
If your wife was any kind of, she would do that
Yeah.
for you.
If she was
Hey, that's good.
reliable.
Did you get 35 gallon or 55 gallon?
50. Is it 50 or 55? 55.
55.
Yeah, so I did the 55 gallon. I I got the
Single
dolly
phase?
for the drum. I
Is it
got
single phase?
yeah. Yeah, I can't do three-phase stuff.
No, I'm just talking about is it single phase or 120? I'm just making sure I don't assume things.
Oh yeah, it's single phase 240 and only requires a 20 amp breaker. So that was one of the big things for me because the plug that it's going to
Yeah.
is on a 20 amp breaker, even though I
Yeah.
could have very easily called my electrician and been like, because the plug is right next to the box. I was like,
Yeah, you can do whatever you want except for three phase. Yeah.
And it says that it has a low decibel, 74 decibel at 10 feet.
that's the biggest reason I got it because it's not that much
Oh,
different than the
can't
Harvey.
wait to see this.
Yeah, I'd be interested in it too.
So
I've
you got
taught,
you got the 3 horse 230 volt, right?
yeah, so many people have wrote me and said, I just got this, or I have this, or I've owned this in the past. Like you are gonna love it. It's amazing. Um, but there's a lot of confusion there on why I would have gotten rid of the Harvey, and done this. The Harvey's great. It's just it's not conducive to what I want to do moving forward because I want to make some changes to my shop and the Harvey where it is doesn't allow me to make those changes the way that I want and I can't move the Harvey anywhere else because that damn inlet is in one specific place and it's tied into my ductwork. So now I won't have to change any of my ductwork. All I'll have to do is get a new reducer off of the machine and then a way to get from that reducer to my existing ductwork, which I think for the time being, I'm going to get one of those. Nordfab makes this metal, like corrugated duct
Mm-hmm.
that Mark Spagnolo actually uses it on
Mhm.
his system. That's how he gets to his main trunk line from the machine. I'm going to do that until I can figure out like exactly which pieces I need because that's the downside. You don't know exactly what pieces and what angles you need until it's in its place and you know how much you have to, tie into it. So
Yeah, I watched his video a while back. I'm wondering if it's the same model. And I remember one of the biggest
no, he
things.
has the yellow one, which
Yes,
uh,
it was yellow. I remember he stressed about how he was going to get it up there on those two hanger bars.
yeah, it might
Yeah.
be. So they have what's called a smart boost technology. And but all of the other models would have required me to have a 30 amp breaker, even though the one right above it, it said its max amperage was like 17 and a half. So I was like, why are you guys recommending a 30? Just because it's so close to 20? And he's like, yeah. And I'm thinking I'd probably be fine with 20. Um, but I asked him, I'm like, do I even really need a smart boost? Would it even benefit me? He's like, well, I mean, it's a good system. Essentially, what it does is the machine can sense where there's static pressure loss and it will
Mm.
adjust the amount of suction that it's giving based on that. But I don't have any crazy long runs. I don't have different size blast gates. They're all the same size. Um, and that's where it really, and or people that are using multiple blast gates at one time. So with my shop, this is fine. I have all 4-inch blast gates. They're all the same. Only one blast gate is open at a time, and it's all automatic. So he actually like because he could have made more money. He could have been like, yeah, you absolutely should. He's like, with what you're doing, like you'll be fine with the V3000. And I was like, okay,
Cool. That'll be neat to see.
sign me up.
You know,
That's cool that he didn't try to oversell you, which I
Yeah.
like.
Yeah,
I would say that's dust collectors are probably a lot like other things. It's like, or HVACs. You don't want to overdo it.
yeah.
Mm.
Try to have what is appropriate for what you're using.
Oh yeah.
My dust collector is a Harbor Freight. No, it's a jet motor off from my used to roll around. Took the
Yeah.
Harbor Freighter motor, the Harbor Freight. No, not Harbor Freight. I had a Harbor Freight one to my CNC. I did the same idea, but I mounted it up at the ceiling. All my duct work. It straight
Mhm.
pipes out to my dump trailer,
Oh,
and
that's cool.
it's amazing how much suction power when you have no filter and it just
Yeah.
straight out. It's crazy. Like
Wow.
because the filter, I guess, is kind of like a muffler on a car. It just like
Yeah.
it restricts the airflow, and you're not sucking. So even though this one's like say like 2.5 horsepower, I think it's more than that because there's no filter. It's just straight out.
Holy shit.
It's pretty strong. But sometimes I think it'd be nice to not have to have the dump trailer there it's dumping into. and just have a system like normal people have. Maybe eventually I'll do that. It just never makes the top of the list.
So you take the trailer, do you take it to the dump or do you take it to horse stalls?
We usually just take it out. We have 6 acres here, so we can just take
Oh.
it and it just goes away. Like when you dump
Yeah.
it out, it just goes back into Mother Nature, like composty kind of thing.
That's
So horse
cool.
stalls would be perfect for you with all the horses that are around there.
They have bring in their own things and that's where you can get free mulch because they only use it one time and they get rid of it. Yeah, that's an ongoing thing. So they have plenty, but they don't use sawdust. They use like a certain type of chips and things because they worry about the horses getting hurt.
Yeah.
They're very specific about what they use.
Yeah, and I would imagine it's they don't have like your say it's on your CNC, you're doing plywood. They don't want those chemicals with their horses.
Yeah, walnut especially. That's
Yeah.
poisonous. Yeah, it's interesting to see the dump trailer, especially from the CNC. There's layers. It looks like the painted desert. You can see
Yeah.
the walnut era, and then there's like
Yeah.
full era, and it's very interesting to see all that. On the collection on yours, what is it? Is it two-stage? Is there two-stage, or is it like one dust collector, like the barrel thing on the bottom? Is that what that is?
It is. I mean, it's a cyclone. So
at the bottom you have a barrel that you just have to raise that lid and dump that out, and then you're good.
yeah, well, I did opt for the bags and a bag liner just so the bag doesn't collapse. It's the same as I had on my jet. But the jet was absurdly loud. It was like 87 decibels. It was something retarded. So I'm excited. We'll see how it goes. I'm sure it's going to be great. I'm sure it's going to be better than what I already have.
So what did you say the decibels of this one was?
74.
74. Yeah. So mine's a jet motor and it is loud. Like
It's so loud.
I want to turn it off as fast as I turn it on usually.
Mm-hmm.
The Harvey, they used to advertise that the Harvey decibels was 69, but I looked at their website the other day, or a few weeks ago when I originally thought about doing this, just to see like how many more decibels it was, because I wanted to refresh my memory. They've actually since changed their advertised decibel ratings. It says like whatever the low end is on low power, but all the way, but at the high power it's 71, which is pretty accurate because when I did the test on mine, I was getting 70 to 71 at about 10 feet away. And I was always like, it's 69 is a little low. But I mean, you guys, you know how quiet the one that I currently have is. Granted, decibels is different. So just because it's 3 decibels more doesn't mean it's like barely louder. Like 3 decibels is fairly significant when you're talking about decibels. But I'm not as concerned with the noise at this point because I only work during the day when no one is home. And even when they're home, it's like a low hum depending on where you are in the house. It's not a problem.
Right.
But I'm excited. We'll see how it goes.
That'll be nice to see.
Yeah. What do you say we wrap this one up, boys?
Okay.
Sounds good.
Thanks everybody for listening.
Yes.
Thanks for listening to episode 140 of the best podcast in the woodworking community. Unlike Off the Cut, there it is, which I was the guest host on, which I actually had a very good time. It was very nice. But then again, that idiot Eric Spenceley wasn't on there. So that's probably why it was so good.
Yep.
Did I hear he got divorced?
Already. He got a divorce
Really?
while he was on his honeymoon.
Yeah, I heard that.
I mean, she must have come to her senses.
They probably listened to the podcast for the first time while they were in the airport.
Yep.
Probably.
That's probably what it led to it.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
Probably like, why can't you be more like these 3 amazing gentlemen?
Yeah, that's what I heard.
Yeah.
Don't tell anybody. That's what I heard.
Yeah, it's true.
Keep it between us.
Yeah. All right, everybody. Thanks for listening. If you want your chance to win our giveaways, go to patreon.com/Green Suiters Podcast. Become a patron and get access to all of the great things that patrons get, like giveaways and our monthly calls, which, by the way, this Friday, Bourbon with the Boys for our apprentice level and higher. We'll see you guys there.
In the Discord.
Right.
And Discord.
Yeah.
All right, everybody.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Bye. Bye 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 bye.